Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, where we are once again on the Pearl River map. This map really does seem to be popping up a lot lately, which is fine. It's a very pretty map. The star of today's show, here in the Chinese Tier 9 medium tank, the WZ-120, an almost completely stock WZ-120 by the way, in this Tier 9 battle, here on the Pearl River map, is Hellion XX. And now that we've introduced the hero, I think it's about time we introduce the villain, because there is a villain in this battle. And that's him right there in chat, the Foch, Tier 9 Tank Destroyer, who has decided that since he lost his last 7 battles, he's just going to go AFK for this one. His reasoning being that since the average win rate of an AFK player in World of Tanks is 45%, that if he was to simply hide up and go AFK in his Foch in this battle, he would actually be able to raise his win rate in that machine by a whole 1%. Now, admittedly, this is not a huge amount of evidence to go on, but I feel that I am able to draw a couple of observations from this. The first being that he's probably the reason why his team lost the last 7 battles. And the second observation is that scumbag move though it may be, if he's that bad in the Foch, and he is pretty bad in the Foch, doing nothing might actually be the best thing that he can do for his team. Well, that's not 100% true. The best thing that he could have done for his team was not queue up in a tank that he has such an abysmally bad performance in. But since he has queued up in a tank that he has such an abysmally bad performance in, then the best thing that he could do for his team is just take his hands off the mouse and keyboard and not do anything. Because the statistics show that most of the time when he queues up in that tank destroyer and actually tries to do something, his team ends up losing. This is of course still a massive scumbag move, and one that I'm sure you're all going to have fun debating in the comments, because if you're not prepared to fight, why are you pressing the battle button? So have fun discussing that one, but do try to keep it at least moderately civil. Meanwhile, back to today's hero, or at least one of them, Hellion, in the almost completely stock WZ-120. Took a very big hit there and completely fluffed his return shot. Not a great start. And while the WZ-120 is, by any standard that you'd care to measure it, a pretty good tank when fully upgraded, stock, not so much. This is basically a Type 59, which I'm sure you all know is a Tier 8 premium. And as we've already covered, the WZ-120 is a Tier 9 medium, and a Tier 9 medium with Tier 8 medium stats is not good by any standards, unless that's a seriously overpowered Tier 8 medium. And the Type 59 may have been an overpowered Tier 8 medium when it was first introduced, like 10 years ago, but there's been a lot of water under the bridge since then. So Hellion did take another hit from the Rheinmetall Borsig before he was able to finish him off, and that has now cost him about half of his health. However, there were other very important events occurring back at the base while that was going on, so we're going to rewind and focus in on the minimap to get a better idea of exactly what kind of scumbag that Foch player actually is. And there you can see him hiding up in his little bush and cluster of buildings, doing absolutely nothing, as the enemy ELC even 90 drives right past him, like within 100 meters of him, and makes a beeline for the friendly artillery, with the Foch doing absolutely nothing about it. It's not that nobody on the team is doing anything about it, it's just that the Foch is doing nothing about it. The Hawk 12 over here, at considerable risk to himself, is crossing a whole bunch of open ground directly below and behind the enemy T-54 in order to try to go back and save the artillery. Unfortunately, he gets 10 out of 10 for effort, but he's a day late and $1 short as the ELC even 90 kills the M53 and then makes it away. Not without taking any damage. The Hawk is going to get a shot or two into him. But the funny thing here, and of course when I say funny, I mean not funny in the slightest, is that the ELC's escape route basically took him over the top of the Foch. He didn't even know he was there, ran into him by complete surprise. And the Foch, of course, did absolutely nothing. So what exactly are you saying here, Jingles? AFK player as AFK? Colour me surprised. Well, no. I mean, yeah, that would be bad enough. But it's worse, because he's not actually AFK. Remember, AFK means away from keyboard. He is at the keyboard. He is just choosing not to use it. He's watching the battle. You can see him talking in chat, and when you see the post-battle results screen, you'll see that he even failed at being AFK. But anyway, things are not going well, and it's not entirely the fault of the Foch. They were 2 kills to 7, although they did just pull 2 kills back. But even when they were 2 kills to 7, they weren't actually 2 kills to 7, because one of those 2 kills was the enemy team helping them out by crashing one of their tanks. Yeah, it's that bad. Oh, the ELC's coming back. Thirsty for more. Swiggity swooty, he's going to get some of that AFK Foch booty. And he absolutely is. I mean, he's not just shooting the Foch himself, he's also spotting him, because he drove right past him on his way out after killing the artillery, and he remembers that the Foch was AFK. So he's coming back for more. Except, of course, as we have already established, the Foch is not actually AFK. He's just a colossal scumbag with no more right to exist on God's clean earth than a virus. Controversial opinion, I'm sure. Feel free to discuss that one in the comments too. But anyway, back to Hellion, in his almost completely stock WZ-120. But being almost completely stock is actually going to be slightly beneficial here. The Foch has died, by the way. Nobody is shedding any tears over that. Because while Chinese guns are notorious for having bad gun depression, he doesn't have the worst gun depression that he could have had if he had a fully upgraded WZ-120, because the gun depression on the 122mm gun, which he doesn't have, is only 3 degrees. That's the only good news though, because the 100mm guns, of which there are a choice of 3 on this machine, are pretty bad. They have terrible damage per minute, bad aiming time, the accuracy is questionable, the gun depression, while not as terrible as the 3 degrees on the 122mm gun, is still pretty bad, and the penetration sucks. The stock gun only has 181mm of penetration, which would be pretty bad for a tier 8 medium, and this is not a tier 8 medium. The next 100mm gun is not much better, with only 189mm of penetration. And judging by the damage that he's doing with each shot that actually hits and penetrates, it's one of those 2 guns that he's using. The third 100mm gun, which I'm pretty sure he doesn't have, does actually have 310 average damage, and does at least have reasonable accuracy. But all of the guns have bad DPM because of the low damage output and the slow rate of fire. The 122mm gun, the best gun on this tank, does have an even slower rate of fire, but it does up to 50% more damage per shot, and has excellent penetration. All of which is completely academic as far as Hellion's concerned, because he does not have that 122mm gun, and he doesn't even have the not so bad of the 3 100mm guns, which is why I'm very surprised, now it's just him and the Hawk 12 left, that he doesn't switch. I mean, he is now switching to the premium ammunition, which does have very good penetration, and if he had done it, he would have definitely killed that Object 257. But even with the gold loaded, he still manages to bounce on the side of the VK. Now, I'm not entirely sure what the T-54 here was thinking. Perhaps it was, well, I just watched 2 of my teammates get shot in the flank and nothing happened to them, so I guess nothing can happen to me either. Oh, and I don't know if you just caught it there in chat, the Foch, still here, still not actually AFK, saying, if you keep playing after losses, World of Tanks just gives you losing teams. Time to log out. Well, no. The time to log out would have been before hitting the battle button and deciding to not actually take part in the battle. Meanwhile, Hellion getting real nervous about the Progetto and ELC Even 90 who were last seen about a minute ago behind him. It's unfortunate that that's the exact moment that the Hawk 12 chooses to make a break for it, although it's doubtful that even if he hadn't backed up for a second there, he would have been able to stop the ELC from killing the Hawk. He manages to avenge him at least, gets spotted, Ferdinand across the valley takes a shot, his tracks eat it, instantly blows the repair kit, and motors back into cover. Credit where credit's due here though, the Hawk did do a fantastic job, backed up into a corner, on low health, in a tier 8 light tank. Whoa! Okay, well, that was the Progetto. Suddenly, a surprise Progetto joins the battle. But he knew the Progetto was going to be back there somewhere. It's the same reason he kept turning around and looked behind him while he was defending the cap and assisting the Hawk, because he knew those guys were back there. and they hadn't been seen in some time. So, Object 257 we know is on very low health, and if you can just penetrate his armour is a one-shot kill. The Ferdinand, that's going to be a different story. He's still got the gold loaded though. And without the 122mm gun, he actually has the gun depression to be able to do this. Keep himself hull down behind the ridge here, and easily penetrate the front of the Ferdinand, without exposing anything other than his very good turret to return fire. The problem, of course, being that without the 122mm gun, it takes more than 2 shots to kill the Ferdinand, who went undetected. Meanwhile, the Object 257, sneaky fat in Russian, not sneaky enough, however, because when you have less than 100 health, and the tank you're trying to sneak up on has nearly 800, he can kill you in one shot, you cannot kill him in one shot. Then again, I mean, it wasn't a terrible idea by the Object, because if the Ferdinand had been able to keep Hellions' attention for another 30 seconds or so, he could probably have gotten away with it. Pumping one shot into him from the rear, and then hopefully getting the second one off before Hellion could turn the turret around. Meanwhile, Hellion getting extremely concerned about the position of the T-28 prototype, which is a very, very slow machine, but he's had more than enough time to make it over here by now, and yet no sign of him. Also, no sign of the Ferdinand. Which probably means, yep, the Ferdinand is in the base. Right. Well, that is a logical move, I suppose, but it does complicate matters, because now he has a minute and a half to get back and do something about the Ferdinand in the cap circle. And that's plenty of time in this machine. But, because he doesn't know where the T-28 prototype is, and he's going to take a quick detour up here and have a look over this ridge just to make sure it's not trying to sneak around the long way, and it isn't. He cannot go down into the river in order to come at the Ferdinand from an unexpected direction, because there's an excellent chance that the T-28 prototype is either coming around the other way or is sitting in the town in the middle and will kill him if he crosses that open ground. So he has to approach the cap from a completely predictable location. And yet despite that, the Ferdinand was covering the river, expecting him to come that way. Unfortunately, that shot just managed to glance off the side of the Ferdinand's casement as he turned, but he missed the return shot. It's going to take more than one though, and the T-28 prototype has just entered the battle. He is, however, a one-shot kill. The Ferdinand misses his opportunity. Hellion finally kills him. Here comes the T-28 prototype. Shot from above into his top armor, guaranteed to penetrate, leaving him on 5 health. He narrowly manages to avoid the ram, stays on the side of the T-28 prototype, finishes him off for his 7th kill, which of course means a Top Gun, a Defender medal, and of course, because at the point where he eliminated the ELC even 90, he was alone against 5 enemy tanks, a Kolobanov's medal, which surprisingly, in this almost completely stock WZ-120, was only good enough for a 2nd class mastery badge. Which I suppose could be explained by the surprising fact that even though he did get a Kolobanov's medal, a Top Gun, 7 kills, and a Defender medal, he only actually did just slightly over 2,000 damage. But the true tragedy of today's battle is that despite being AFK, or at least claiming that he was going to go AFK for the entire battle, the Foch actually did 1,400 damage. He just couldn't resist pressing that fire button. Which means that he wasn't even in the bottom 5 on the team for experience earned. Bottom of the team on experience earned was the artillery that he threw to the ELC even 90. And as if that wasn't enough to prove that there is absolutely no justice in this world, just to add insult to injury and proving once again that if you can't take a joke, you shouldn't be playing World of Tanks, even with the Kolobanov's medal, Top Gun, 7 kills and the Defender medal, because Hellion was having to fight Tier 9 tanks with a Tier 8 gun and therefore rely on the use of gold ammunition in the second half of that battle. Despite having a personal reserves bonus and a premium account, he still managed to lose 45,000 credits on the outcome of that battle. So I think by now I've given you all plenty to talk about in the comments section of today's video. I do look forward to reading what you all have to say. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.